very good evening to you and a warm welcome to Business Focus. Tonight I'll be speaking to respected economist Kwame Pianim on the Bank of Ghana. It's a very, sensitive institution, one that he hardly will want to talk about. But lately, a lot of issues have arisen about the Bank of Ghana. The bank, in its latest financial report, stated that he had made a loss of close to 60 billion cedis. There are also issues about a new head office that the Bank of Ghana is building. And in a few weeks, the minority will be demonstrating, seeking to oust the governor of the Bank of Ghana. I'm here with respected economist, Mr. Kwame Pianim. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. And good to have you.
You are welcome. And let me start by congratulating you on bringing the Komla Dumo Award back to Ghana. So congratulations for bringing it back to Ghana. And I hope that the award, the exposure, international exposure to give you, the work ethics that you gained from this award, you bring it to Ghana to enrich the performance of the fourth estate. Because democracy without a thriving media, print and electronic media, cannot work too well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pianim. It's always a delight speaking to you. So let's talk about the Bank of Ghana. It's been in the news lately for the very wrong reasons. What do you make of all the cacophony that's surrounding the Bank of Ghana?
I think that you said, I normally don't like talking about Bank of Ghana. It's a very sensitive institution. When people are coming to lend to Ghana, or we are dealing with the IMF, the World Bank, the credibility and the integrity of the Bank of Ghana is very, very important. And therefore, we have to be very careful when we are talking about them. Also, the issues they handle, the exchange rate policies, monetary policies, these are issues you cannot talk openly about without having consequences on the market. The Chinese have a saying that you sometimes shoot at the chicken in order to frighten the monkeys. And in my village, they will say that when you are playing the drum, the skin, the surface is there. You don't play the sides. Some of us were saying that the crisis, the depth of the crisis Ghana is facing now, the economic crisis, is unprecedented. It's heavy. The government kept denying it. The only time I heard the Minister for Finance say there was or there has been a crisis was the last budget that he, where he stated that. And he quickly went on to say that we've turned the corner. That was the time he should have said, look, the crisis is deep. We need all Ghanaians to tighten our belts for an austerity program so that we get out of this mess. It's going to take us minimum 10 years to crawl back. And he should have added, but for Bank of Ghana's prudent intervention, the problem would have been worse. You and I remember that the city went almost 12 to 15, 18, and then slid back. By now, without Bank of Ghana's intervention, and I'll come to that, the city might have slipped to 20, 30 by now, 30 cedis to the dollar. So, as far as I'm concerned, when the Bank of Ghana report came, then they should have signaled to our people, the MPs, who claimed they probably didn't understand what was happening, and to our bankers, our business community, that the crisis we've been talking about is by far more than we've admitted. And this is what is reflected in this deficit. About 50% of that deficit is what people will call technical deficit. That is, you didn't do any operation to incur it, but it happened because to get the agreement for people to accept the haircut, Bank of Ghana had to accept about 50% of the holdings of government bonds to be cut by 50%. Otherwise, we would not have reached the 50, the 80%, 85% we're talking about on the domestic debt exchange. So all this should tell us now that the crisis was by far bigger. You talk about why was Bank of Ghana saying they were not printing money?
They denied it.
They denied it. Okay. This is an issue that I raised quietly in confidence with the governor. This discussion, Honorable Adongo raised it. I said this discussion is a political discussion. Bank of Ghana should not interject themselves into a political discussion. Let the chairman of the Parliamentary Finance Committee, the Minister for Finance, and the ranking member on the Finance Subcommittee in Parliament discuss it. If they want to, they can summon the Minister for Finance to come and bring you for you to answer questions. You don't respond. And when we are responding to, it's peculiar that this document came out from the office of the secretary to the bank. She's a lawyer. Even I don't understand money printing. But let me explain money printing to you. You know, Bank of Ghana is the bank of the government of Ghana. It means the government have several accounts with the Bank of Ghana. When Ghana Revenue Authority is collecting monies for the bank, for the government, they deposit it there. When the government writes a check, Bank of Ghana honors it. If Bank of Ghana doesn't honor it, there will be chaos. You remember, Dufo once said that he wasn't going to honor checks when he was governor. If the Minister for Finance doesn't have money, he will not. And he bounced a few checks. It was problematic. Because if you are bouncing checks, the checks are for the salary of teachers, soldiers, policemen,
payments, you mean?
Pensioners, everything. So you honor them. At the end of the year, when you are together, all the checks you've honored, because when I write a check on my account and there's no money in it, my bank gives me an overdraft. What is the overdraft? The overdraft is the excess money that Pakwisi Asare has in his account, which they then on-lend to me. But with Bank of Ghana, they don't have anybody else with excess capacity. So they finance it. At the end of the year, we take what they have paid on the government account
against what the government
has received. If there's a balance and they cannot finance it from their own working capital, and they go to the vaults to take money from the currency they printed there to come and cover that, that's the equivalent of money printing. So at the beginning, when they were saying that, I presume what they were saying is that...
In fact, to put into proper perspective,
yeah,
a statement they issued to set the records straight, according to the Bank of Ghana, was that the amount of 22 billion cedis that they were alleged to have printed represented net claims on government and not new currency printed to support the government's budget.
Yeah, they're claiming that they have loaned it, they've given overdraft to the government. Can be from their own account, can be from other sources. But let me explain the process so that people can make up their own mind. The beauty about democracy is that people can go on the street, demonstrate, and give their own opinions. But in the final analysis, for us as a country, for us to grow, we have to find out if something went wrong, why did they go wrong? And then how can we prevent things going wrong so that we grow. So this is what is money printing. So what they were saying might have been that, no, we haven't reached the stage where we can decide whether there has been money printing or not. But let me go back and say that the independence of Bank of Ghana, you know, we said Bank of Ghana should be independent. This crisis has shown us that there are few gray areas that we need to review. For example, even though Bank of Ghana is independent, we still made it that they have to report through the Minister for Finance. And if Bank of Ghana is going to get into the difficulties that we are discussing about, it's because the Minister of Finance is not doing their job properly. what the economists call fiscal dominance. That is, the mismanagement of our expenditure and revenues by government is dominating the monetary vehicles for managing the economy.
But Mr. Pianim, this was anticipated, and that is why the law was made that once Bank of Ghana wanted to give beyond the 5% as is mandated by law, it needed to go to Parliament, and that's what the minority ranking member, then ranking member on finance in 2022, Kesala Tuforsin, said that the bank had printed an amount of 22 billion cedis to finance government's budget without parliamentary approval. And your explanation is what?
I don't recall that they need parliamentary approval. Remember, we suspended the Fiscal Responsibility Act. When the Fiscal Responsibility Act was removed, it was saying in effect, we cannot obey the regulation that we have governing the fiscal.
Right.
Okay. So we are suspending it. During President Mohammed's time, when the IMF was pushing that there should be zero funding from Bank of Ghana, I fought it. I said it's wrong. We should not agree. IMF forced Sir Tekpe to sign an agreement with Governor Wampa that there will be zero funding. It's a misunderstanding of the money affairs of a government. When they don't have the money and the revenue is coming in, somebody has to fit it in. The previous law used to say that 15% of the previous year's revenue collection, the Bank of Ghana could lend it on lend to government to cover those type of things. So that was wrong. Then we signed the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which says if there's a problem, you can suspend it. When the Minister for Finance went to Parliament and they agreed to suspend the Fiscal Responsibility Act, Parliament should have asked what happens to the equivalent, that is the monetary policy one, which is, I think, Article 36 of the amended Bank of Ghana Act, which says that if there is an emergency and Bank of Ghana needs to be able to suspend the rules surrounding monetary policy, what they do is to inform the Minister for Finance. It's the Minister for Finance's responsibility to report to Parliament. We didn't make Bank of Ghana responsible to go to Parliament. So when the Minister for Finance went to Parliament to suspend the Fiscal Responsibility Act, somebody from the opposition or from the government should have asked, what happens to Article 36 of the Banking Act? And the minister should have said, concurrently, that part is also suspended. Because you cannot suspend the Fiscal Responsibility Act and leave the complementary dimensions on the monetary policy side. Because the fiscal part affects the channels of the monetary policy. And this should have been clear. It wasn't clear. That's one of the gray areas.
But somebody has got to take responsibility for it. Your explanation is after the fact. That the refusal to do what the law said, obviously, should be punishable. So who takes the responsibility? Is the finance minister?
There's a gray area. As I'm saying, this is not new. Between Frimpong Ansah, who was governor, and J.H. Mensah, they were difficult, even though in those days, Bank of Ghana was reporting to the Minister for Finance. We changed that. Yao Safo was the strongest advocate of the independence of the central bank. I said, Yao, if politicians cannot protect the interest of people who vote for them, how can we expect a technician to be responsible to care for the interest? And Yao Safo was trained as a banker from Germany, where the governor of the central bank, if there's a rift between the central bank governor, the federal governor, and the minister for finance, the minister resigns because they went through this serious depreciation of their currency after the Second World War. So for them, stability of the currency is very important. What I'm saying is that the laws that we made, you make a law, you follow it with regulations, and then you follow with practice. The practice, we have not been there. It's a gray area. And let me tell you about the experience I have from UBA. Of all the institutions I've been chief executive of, boards that I have served on. I used to tell all the people who were working for me in Ministry of Finance, Bank of Ghana, Ministry of Finance, Cocoa Board, and then PURC as board chair everywhere. New World, my private company. Take action. Act. Don't waste around time afraid to take action. If you make a mistake, I'll protect you. But if you make a mistake and you benefit financially from it, you have me to answer to. So the same way, UBA, that's one thing I learned from UBA, one of the strongest banks. When a mistake is made, we all sit down, honestly, frankly, and review what went wrong. Was it lack of regulations? We go through it. Was it a human error? Was it a process error? And then we identify what went wrong. If it was human, was it fraudulent or incompetence or just a sheer accident? We go through all this and then we decide. Then we go back and check. If there was lack of clear, very precise definitions with clarity on the regulations laws, we amend it. If it was a human error, we deal with it. If it was fraudulent, we deal with the person. What is happening is this. What the governor did, what rules was he following? Have we checked if the governor had been brought to Parliament, where he will be talking under oath? What processes did you take in terms of consultation to do what you have to do? And all he was doing, remember, is honoring checks that were being drawn upon him. Whom can he complain to? He can go to the president and say, Mr. President, we're in a dire situation. Have we asked him?
Some of us heard from the grapevine that he had threatened to resign.
What I heard is that he was unhappy. Why was he unhappy? He was unhappy because the severity of the economic crisis was not being communicated, neither to Parliament, neither to us, neither to the print and electronic media, and nobody was asking serious questions. What is going wrong?
But as a governor, if you're worried, if you indeed wanted the people of Ghana to know the difficulties that the economy was confronted with, and the politicians were refusing to do so, why didn't you just resign?
Resignation doesn't solve any problem. If the governor resigns now, what happens? The same Minister for Finance, who is at the core of the economic crisis, recommends whom? To the president, the same president. They appoint somebody who doesn't know the terrain, who hasn't gone through this experience to be able to solve the problem. No. What I'm saying is that, was it through incompetence? No, not incompetence. Was it through fraud? Did the governor benefit? Did any of his companies benefit from what he did? As I said.
Well, the people of the country suffered.
The people
They suffered through high inflation and through high interest rates, because once inflation was high, the governor himself, who had given so much money to the government, now turns around with the help of the Monetary Policy Committee to increase the prime rate, which inevitably increased interest rates.
Yeah. What I'm trying to get across to you is this. Let's see the alternative. I'm not holding brief for anybody. Let's see the alternative. The government decided we are bouncing government checks. The soldiers are not paid. Policemen are not paid. Nurses and doctors are on the street. The sick can't get anything. One would ask, okay, this will have signaled to the Ghanaian people that we are in a mess. We'll be in a Sri Lanka situation. You remember, the IMF managing director told us during part of that, your problem is not different from Sri Lanka. Did we get that in Ghana? Did you get that impression? That we have this dire economic situation?
I didn't.
We didn't. So why did you expect that the governor, who was communicating this to all of us, that there's a crisis and we are not being told? Now we are being told, you, by saving us from a bigger crisis, as I said, If they had not done what they did, the city would be now about 30 to 40. We've been there before.
So, Mr. Pianim, I do get your point, and it's quite a valid point, that we're in a critical situation and we needed help. And the Bank of Ghana had to come in to save the situation. But the law was such that it only asked for Parliament and the people of the country of Ghana to know the situation, and then based on that, possibly Parliament would have approved it.
No, I'm saying that there are gray areas in the law. The governor doesn't go to Parliament.
So you're blaming the finance minister?
The laws we all made, we need to clarify the laws that we made.
But if you say we all need to clarify the laws, then nobody's taking responsibility for anything. Then we are all at fault then.
Of course, yes, that's what I'm saying.
But that's why we put leaders in place to hold the fort, and they take responsibility for their actions.
Let's demonstrate against the president. He's responsible. He appoints the governor, he appoints the minister for finance. What I'm saying that the law, we all say that Bank of Ghana is independent. I'm trying to say that there are gray areas in that law. That law, when they say that, we should say that the Bank of Ghana, when they have issues, they should report direct to Parliament. Okay? The other similar, technically independent, operationally independent institution is the PURC. When they are setting up the tariff, they have nobody, they should listen to nobody from outside. They look at the data and they set it. And what do? They gazette it, legislative instrument, it's gazetted. And it's can be laid in Parliament for 21 days. If they want to comment upon it, they comment upon it. Maybe we need something similar for the Bank of Ghana. The Bank of Ghana, what the governor does is that when this emergency, you do Article 36 of the Banking Act, is that they inform the Minister for Finance. The Minister for Finance responsibility is to go to Parliament. If I'm told to inform you and I inform you, I've done my job. Then you take the board. When they were going to get this haircut, which is the technical losses, that is part of the 60 billion you are talking about, they go to the board. The board then, if they think they want to do that, they pass a resolution. The resolution was passed. The shareholders are us, Parliament representing us as the citizens of Ghana. What are the rules that we made? That when they pass that, the resolution should go to Parliament. There's nothing like that. They informed the Minister for Finance. Minister for Finance, when he was talking to Parliament about suspending the Financial Responsibility Act, should have added that part. It wasn't added. So let's clarify it. Don't let us sacrifice a person and not change the rules. Let's change the rules, the practices, and make sure that next time this thing doesn't happen.